to come and talk to y'all about a book that I just got finished reading, and it was The Coming by Daniel Black. So, the way it's written is almost like a stream of consciousness. It's not like a structured story, it's just like it's almost like he's being used as a vessel to tell the different stories of the people that are our ancestors that were in the Middle Passage. So it's different stories about different people, different cultures throughout the Middle Passage and what they endured during this journey. So going into the book, I thought I knew about the Middle Passage, but I quickly learned like it's easy to know like the facts of something that happened, but this book really puts you in the actual Middle Passage with those people, and he did so well in explaining some of the things that they went through. You don't really take into account what that's like. Like there's points in the book where he explains the smell of like fecal matter, the smell of people throwing up, the smell of sickness, like all those things that you experience in this book with them. One of the main things that I learned in this book that I don't know if I didn't know or that I guess I didn't take into account was a lot of the people that were abducted from their home were people that spoke different languages, had different cultures, had different religions. So they weren't even able to really communicate with each other. And they ended up learning how to communicate with somebody else who didn't speak their same language by like looks and using their hands. They talk about how some of the different cultures they use symbols, and symbols meant something to them. Like on top of all the other stuff that they had to deal with, all the other like tragedies and like evil things that they had to deal with, they also did not know one another and were constantly, battling the evils of what was happening to them. This book was extremely powerful, and I think what made it so powerful and like a must read is because you learn about the Middle Passage, but you, like I said, you really get the stories of these people, and you feel for them, you have compassion for them, and you really appreciate the fight and the willingness and the choice that they made to survive. And I think like one of the main takeaways from the book was getting the reader to understand that our ancestors chose to live. They chose to live so their legacy can be passed on for future generations. And they wanted their stories to be told in order to show future generations of their strength and their willingness to survive in the face of pure evil. The book was amazing. I mean, it's a must read. And it's funny because I thought about like in history class, you would read like the facts of something that was happening in like a chapter, but you don't really get to delve into it. And I think that's what is so special about historical fiction, because you can pick a point in time in history and really go into the stories of some of the people that it affected. And this was an excellent way to do just that. Um, and what made it even better was it's not just one story. Like you were learning about all the people on this ship during different times of the ship or different times of the middle of the journey. And it didn't stop with just like on the ship. You got to a point where they finally got off the ship, and then they were in these like holding cells, and you went through the process of them getting sold on the auction block, and how they didn't speak the same language, but they ended up having a um a, a community, a family. This is like a one good quote about them wanting to keep their legacy alive and keep the stories told from this time. And it says that silence is the enemy of history, and history is all we have. This is another one. They say, we dreamed that one day our children would know the cost of our coming. That would be enough. That would heal our souls. We had learned our lesson. They would talk about their ancestors before them, and they referenced how they as a people were stronger than their circumstances. And they would try to like keep that in their head while going through this, but it was constant doubt. Like it even says they weren't convinced. Our hearts were heavy. They could barely breathe. They didn't feel strong. They didn't feel mighty. They didn't feel protected. They felt weak and vulnerable, helpless, abandoned, dejected. But they were not willing to give up. Not now. Not after so many died. We lived to keep their names alive. We lived to remind ourselves of our worth. We lived to see what the end of this lesson would be. We simply had no idea life could be so miserable. We lost someone every day. We smelled like animals. We lived like animals. We ate like animals. We never imagined such grief. Now it was our daily measure. If we intended to live, we'd have to do so with no joy at all. The thing that I really liked about this book was, like I said before, it not only showed the journey to get to where they were going, but it also showed them being sold off one by one. And it was every like break in a story, it would tell you these are how many people are left. This is the coming. Very haunting. They were in the holding cells so long without. They had barely had food. They barely had water. They couldn't bathe. Um, I mean, the only good thing that they referenced about being in that holding place was that they were no longer on the ship with the rocking and that they had space. But slowly they were getting sold off, and it was starting to get down to like the last couple. And then there would be times where they would say, like, I don't want to be here by myself. Like, I don't think I can handle being by myself. So they were almost wanting to be sold, which was crazy. One of the things they said, they were, let me see. Yeah, they're referencing two people getting sold together. And as tragic as it was, they were happy that they were together. And it says, it was strange, really, our gratitude for being sold together. We started out furious at being sold at all. Now simply not being sold alone was a relief. So much of our way of life have changed. We cared less for grooming. We simply wanted to be clean. We didn't think of favorite foods. We just wanted to eat. We didn't care for a soft place to sleep. We longed merely to sleep uninterrupted, without the torment of nightmares and hungry rats. We saw in our minds access and abundance in our villages, and we wondered if it had angered God enough to spawn this lesson. If it had, we had gotten the point. There was no luxury here, no abundance, none of anything, nothing lavish at all. The only thing we treasured was each other. But we couldn't have learned this lesson at home. The book was really, really good. I highly recommend this book. I will say that you got to get your mind right before you pick this up and read this book, but it is something that is going to forever stick with me. It's something that I can reference like when my child grows up and starts to ask questions. Um, and it's just something that I feel like we all need to know and be reminded of our ancestors' strength, and be thankful that they chose to live.